All right, good afternoon. So I did not intend on making a video today. Busy day at work. Things have changed a lot since I've started working quite a bit. It's good for me. It's good for my wallet. Good in a lot of ways, but it's impacted my ability to, I got to work on this stuff on weekends now. However, today we got something that came as a great surprise to me. So when they announced the mini expansion thing, I fully expected it to be like winter, possibly even early 2024 before we actually saw that manifest. I thought it was going to take them quite a bit longer to put this together. But we already have the trailer for the upcoming mini expansion, which is very pleasing to me that they've had that quick a turnaround. Now I still have a lot of reservations, in fairness, about how much it's going to look like Icebrood Saga. I'm concerned about the masteries, but we did get a hint of that with some of the announcements today, and maybe it's not quite as bad as I was afraid. And there are a lot of things that were very promising in what was presented today. I'm actually very pleased with it.
I need to speak to you.
You can't speak to me right now, Lineguard Vidium, because I'm in the middle of recording something. You're outrageous, honestly. So had not planned on making a video, but I want to talk about this because I think it's pretty cool. I'm actually more excited than not, which is something that I haven't felt since some point before the launch of End of Dragons, and it's a good feeling. So let's talk about it. What I'm going to start out by doing while I work on Skyscale here on one of my alt accounts is I'm going to go ahead and insert the trailer into this video, and then we're going to talk about what we see there and also about what the announcement has. So let's take a look at that trailer, and we'll take it from there. All right, so lots of cool stuff going on there, at least in my opinion. Very pleased with what I see. Uh, the first thing that jumps out at me, being someone who's, I don't want to say a fan of the story because I'm often not a fan of the story, but someone to whom, I'm someone who would like, I want to enjoy the story, and oftentimes I don't. So with that in mind, what I see that I like so much is that we're going towards something that I think there was a lot of kind of hidden value in, and that's the idea of like ancient magic, right? So like Deepstone Fractal, we see some sort of ancient magic there, right? We get a little bit of that with the Gaiala Delves thing with the demons, which aren't necessarily, um, part of like the traditional or like what we've seen out of Guild Wars 2 so far. But you can go all the way back to core content with like the Ara dungeon and some of the ancient knowledge that was possessed by ancient races and stuff. Like there's just a huge opportunity to go beyond the ley line magic and whatever magic elementalists and guardians are wielding and really look at like the ancient magics in play in Tyria. And we see that in this trailer. And then we see the Wizard's Tower, right? So kudos to Wooden Potatoes, who's been talking about the Wizard's Tower forever. I mean, years and years ago, I remember watching Wooden Potatoes videos and like thinking to myself, yeah, I also would like to see that tower come into play. Clearly looks like it's going to. So the opportunity to examine something that should be a lot of fun with that takes us away from ley lines and takes us away. I mean, we knew we were going away from dragons, but take us away from some of that other stuff as well. And it looks like that's what's going to happen. and that's really cool. Now, I do have, you'll also see in the trailer, that it looks like there's some damage done to Kessex Hills, like when the when the Wizard's Tower like blinks out of existence or whatever's happening there. Um, then Kessex Hills is like devastated in some way, or that little village, and I forget the name of the village, um, right there next to the Wizard's Tower. It's actually a village of wizards, and well, not wizards, magic users, right? Which could well play into the story also, and I would love to see that if that aspect of that village played into the story. But we see like a bunch of damage done to that village. I am kind of over like places that we know being devastated. Like I think everyone was over that after Lion's Arch. So I don't know that I'm in like a huge rush to see that. I'm not super geeked to see how that manifests, but that's a pretty minor thing. Demons as a foe. So we've already got a little bit of that, right? We got that with the Gayala Delves thing and the Oni, and then they added the Oni to other maps and End of Dragons. I was not keen on that idea. It reminded me a lot of like the bounty ambushes where they kind of, go back after the fact and say, hey, we're going to kind of flip this on its head. And that's like basically what the Oni are. They're like these ambushes, and if you're a singular player, then you're probably just going to get wrecked. And 2 or 3 players may not have the DPS to kill the Oni in time. Maybe 3, but like I have failed with 2 people before. So to come back to the point, we've seen the demon thing before, but if you take a good look at them. And particularly towards the end when we get like a silhouette like standing facing away from us, they actually look a lot like the Margonites, or in my opinion it looks like a Margonite from the first Guild Wars game. And I'm okay with that. Again, I've always expressed my personal opinion that I'm good with them bringing back conceptually stuff from the first game. I'm just tired of seeing characters from the first game because that's kind of stupid given the time distance, or the time that's passed between the first game and the second game. Here we don't, hopefully we're not worried about that. If it turns out to be a Margonite that like we encountered in the first game, I'm not going to be like super amped about that. But just in general, bringing the Margonites into play, I think is a potentially cool thing, and bringing areas that we had explored late in the first game with Eye of the North, if I'm not mistaken. Or, no, actually, I think it was Nightfall. Areas that we explored with Nightfall, like bringing that back into play, that could potentially be really cool. So, in terms of what the story looks like, I'm cautiously, again, they repeatedly disappoint me with the story, so when I say I'm optimistic, I'm not expecting this to be Dostoevsky, but if it can be like kind of okay, then that's like good enough for me right now. And I'm cautiously optimistic that it will be kind of okay. Moving beyond that, they talk about, and I'm really pleased to be 100% fair to ArenaNet. Really pleased that they're like forward leaning on this and discussing it now instead of waiting for players to like find out when the expansion drops exactly what they spent their money on. So I'm glad that they're upfront with this now. The new combat system. So I was very concerned that what the new combat system was going to look like was what they did in Gayala Delves and what they did in Icebrood Saga, where, hey, get this mastery or you're going to have a harder time on the map because enemies are harder to kill, or you have a debuff or something like that, right? We didn't like it in Icebrood Saga. We didn't like it in Gayala Delves. And we wouldn't like it in any other content. That is always bad design. It just is, period. And then, surely, I know that wasn't a scale. Surely, people who are professionally in the business of making video games would know that, right? I wasn't completely surprised. In fact, I think I actually suggested it as a possibility in my video when I talked about them announcing mini expansions, that they might do this. It didn't shock me that they're doing it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think it's going to be a nightmare for balance. What they're doing is we are going to be able to wield the weapons from elite specs without being spec'd into that elite spec, if that makes sense. So, if I want to be a, um, where can I find bats? I never remember. I think there's a cave on this map. If I want to be a reaper wielding a pistol, I will be able to do that. That is my impression based on the announcement today. If I want to be a spellbreaker wielding a torch, I can do that. So on and so forth. You get the idea. Like, I'm not going to belabor the point there. That's fun. What I'm glad they didn't do is simply allow 2 elite spec trait lines at the same time. That would have been disastrous, and of course it wouldn't have functioned well anyway, because you can't have Reaper Shroud and Scourge, whatever they call that, Sand Shroud or whatever. You can't have those both available to you in the UI at the same time, right? So it would have been broken in terms of gameplay, and it wouldn't have worked in terms of the UI, and it would have caused all kinds of problems. They are going to give us the weapons, and it sounds like it's going to be a mastery line that enables us to do that. That's good. It should manifest. Whatever they're going to do should be packaged in some kind of mastery line. I'm good with that. My concern is this. That is going to be really, really fun for people like me who enjoy playing the game kind of out here in the open world and in dungeons and low-level fractals and at kind of I'm a non-competitive player. I don't feel the need to be competitive in PvE, whether it's solo or group content, and I don't play PvP in a competitive fashion, right? Folks who are very concerned about balance are not going to have a good time when this rolls out. I am absolutely confident of that. This to me sounds like a balance nightmare. Now, the first Guild Wars game was a balance nightmare. There were way too many skills. There were way too many weapons. There were just way too many things you could do for them to ever be really, truly, effectively balanced. So if that's what they're doing, if they're just embracing that old school mentality and they're going Guild Wars 1 on us and saying, hey, we're just going to go bananas with the gameplay and you're going to have to deal with balance, then fine. I get that. Good on them or whatever if that's the road they want to go down. But there are going to be a lot of hurt feelings in terms of how that ends up manifesting for some folks. There are no bats in here, just spiders. I don't individually care. I don't know if it's good for the game or not. The folks who are real concerned about what PvP feels like and what world versus world feels like might. To say that they'll be a bit unhappy is kind of all right, who cares? But if they start feeling alienated, then that could potentially be a problem. So that would be something to keep an eye on. Now, if they do in fact do more regular balance patches, which they haven't done in the past, even as a non-PvPer, I know that balance has not been addressed nearly often enough. It's not a regular thing in the past. If it starts becoming a regular thing, then maybe that's less of an issue. And players will be more satisfied with that. But it is something to take note of, that balance is simply going to be a disaster, and I am intrigued by how that might look. Another thing they announced is that they're doing a rune rework, right? So most superior runes have a 6th. In fact, I have no idea if this character is even running runes. God knows. There we go. So you see power, precision, power, and then a thing. Some sort of thing that happens. 10% strike damage to enemies below 50% health, 5 seconds of vigor after entering stealth. So they're going to remove that 6th thing and replace it with something that's more consistent with the 5. So to come back to that same example, power, precision, power. Presumably we will see 150% precision, or 100. I'm sorry, not percent. 150 precision or 100 precision or increased crit or something like that in that 6th slot, where right now you see that other thing. And then they're going to move that additional effect to something that they're going to call relics. Now, to be clear, I just glanced at the plan. So maybe they'll just do away with the 6th one altogether, and it'll be 5 things in this. That would actually be much better for avoiding like colossal power creep. But bottom line, there's gonna be relics, and this is gonna be an additional part of your build, and that's where you'll get that other thing that's happening. You'll get that from relics instead of from the runes themselves. So that will allow for more diversity in builds, because now you can choose a particular thing that is happening, where that would have previously been in your rune. You can now choose one that better complements your playstyle or what your build is trying to achieve. So I do like that in principle, even if they, instead of replacing that 6th one with like crit or more precision, if they make it go away and the relic is separated, I'm still concerned even then that we're going to see some power creep, and I don't know that that's what the game needs right now, is like more power creep. There's been so much of it already for a game that relies on what do they call it, like horizontal progression, and doesn't increase level cap and so forth. There aren't new sets of armor coming out, stuff like that. New stat lines being, well, there are new stat lines being introduced, but the fact that we have horizontal progression and not vertical progression means that it's difficult to mitigate power creep, because you aren't going to necessarily be releasing like way harder content. I don't know. We need that. Like, hopefully relics are effectively balanced. And given what a short period of time, maybe the next map has bats. Given the very short period of time that they invested in putting this mini expansion together, have they had time to balance that? I don't know. But still, it'll increase build diversity, and I think a lot of people are going to appreciate that. That seems to be the theme to the combat changes they're making, is they're going to sacrifice a bit of balance and kind of allow for like a bit of power creep, and like they're going to give up some of that in principle to allow players to kind of go bananas and have a really good time trying new things. And that might be like an exchange that pays off for them and players really embrace. In fact, I think more than likely that's going to be the case, but not everyone's going to be super receptive to it. So the final thing I want to address that as we return to the trailer versus the announcement is the pricing. So we had been told, mini expansion is going to be cheaper because you're getting a little bit less or a lot less, depending on what your perspective on that is. So they didn't already announce the pricing. In fact, it's already it's available for pre-order. On my main account, I'll probably go ahead and pre-order the deluxe edition, because that's what I generally, for my main account, I order immediately and order deluxe. And for my other accounts, I order later and bare bones. So I'm pleased that the pricing is out there. 25 for base, 50 for whatever I forgot what they call the step above base, 75 for deluxe. Are there no bats in here either? I never have a problem finding bats when I don't want to find them. Is that the right price point for a mini expansion? Is that the right price point for, honestly, what is probably not going to give us anything more than Icebrood Saga did? Again, this sounds like it's probably going to be a little bit better than Icebrood Saga, but is it more? And is that worth 20, 25, 50, 75? There's room for some debate there. I don't know that this would be a profitable model if that wasn't the price point. So I can appreciate that fact and acknowledge that probably needs to be the price point. The trailer and the announcement is enough to convince me to spend money on my main account and at least a couple of alt accounts. So in that sense, yeah, I guess it's good because I'm going to spend my money. If I'm spending my money, then I'm not in a position to say it's bad because I already made the choice to spend money, right? Is it good for everyone? I don't know. That's another thing worth looking at. But overall, to be quite honest, I'm pleasantly surprised with today's trailer and today's announcement. So, looking forward to seeing more because I'm sure over the next month or so, because I'm also under the impression it's going to release sooner than we thought as well. I believe they did say like late summer release, so we might get another month, 2 months of probably 2 months of blogs and further announcements and interesting stuff, and then maybe this will go live. That would be really amazing to see this, by late August. Um, Between now and then, I'm sure we're going to hear a lot more. I'm sure there will be a lot of clarity, and probably as they have genuinely put forth an effort to communicate better over the last year, maybe we'll get some answers into how they view the balance question and how they view power creep. And maybe that will either exacerbate some of my concerns or put them to bed. I don't know. But yeah, excited. And I think we should be. I think most folks should be. So, by all means, if you have thoughts on the matter, interested to see them in comments. And look forward to picking up with the story gameplay here in the near future as I continue my playthrough of the entire Guild Wars 2 personal story. Clearly, I am not going to catch up before new story is released, so I will continue to fight against the clock as we move to the next mini expansion. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy your week.